I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, it looks like President Trump's Mideast peace deal isn't as imminent as we thought. The Israeli police are coming under fire for their treatment of ultra-Orthodox protesters, and we'll reveal the unbelievable finding an Israeli family has made in their very own backyard. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. The Palestinian reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas has thrown yet another major question mark into the possibility of Middle East peace. President Trump has been promising a peace plan ever since the campaign trail, but hold your horses, because now a White House official has said there are no imminent plans to put a deal on the table. Many had expected Trump's plan for Middle East peace, the ultimate deal as Trump called it, to arrive shortly. That's because Team Trump has invested time and effort into peace envoys with multiple Arab nations, and Trump himself has had one-on-ones with both Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Sources within the White House say the administration is putting together a plan on the good faith that the Palestinians are genuinely seeking peace. But unlike past policy, this one won't impose any deadline. In another departure from past American strategies, the deal will also bring many other Arab nations to the table, as opposed to keeping it strictly between the Israelis and the Palestinians. But this latest news that the White House has no imminent plans for Trump's peace deal may have something to do with the latest Palestinian unity efforts. Israel has refused to negotiate with a PA supported by Hamas terror, while Hamas has only strengthened its resolve to obliterate the Jewish state. These complications are certainly going to have a major impact on any peace deal the White House can offer. Well, amidst the shifting alliances in the ongoing talks for a Palestinian unity deal, another Arab nation has entered the fray. Qatar, which has been one of Hamas's biggest supporters and funders, has just sent an envoy to the Gaza Strip to weigh in on the negotiations. Qatar has been at the center of the Gulf crisis recently, faced with a crippling embargo. That's because the country has funded Hamas terror for years now, which is why some are very wary of Qatar getting involved in the Palestinian reconciliation deal. When the deal first came together in Egypt, Qatar was reportedly furious that Hamas had shifted so far under Egypt's wing, though Hamas has since denied this. The Qatari envoy is now in Gaza and is expected to deliver the country's first public statements on Palestinian reconciliation. Now, regardless of what those words end up being, it certainly speaks volumes to see Qatar on the ground with the Palestinians. Israel's ultra-Orthodox have been enraged ever since the court's decision to reverse the law exempting the Haredim from army service. Protests hit a boiling point just a few days ago when Haredim organized a day of rage, blocking roads all over the country. And in the wake of dozens of arrests, some are questioning the police's response. With us now to explain is ILTV's Brett Allen Smith. Now, Brett, what is the controversy here?
Thanks, Natasha. Well, as we saw last week, the Day of Rage protests got very out of control very quickly. Now, you had hundreds of Haredim picketing, shouting, "We'd rather die than be drafted," and then you had dozens of officers trying to break up the crowds and just get traffic flowing again. Police made at least 120 arrests that day, and when many Haredim refused to identify their names for their booking, police had to mark their hands with a marker and ID them by number. Obviously, the symbolism was a unpleasant reminder of a certain kind of Holocaust imagery.
Right, and I can imagine that this is just one of several accounts by the Haredim that are alleging either brutality or insensitivity against them from these protests, no?
Right, and the police have definitely been under a lot of scrutiny here and gotten some flack about that. Though having said that, many accounts identify the Haredim as especially aggressive in these protests and even inciting the police in the first place. There was even one man, not a police officer, just a civilian as far as we know, who tried to break up the protests kind of on his own by shoving pornography into their faces, which is, of course, forbidden in the ultra-Orthodox world. Why don't we take a look now at the report?
The ultra-Orthodox protests against Israel's draft exemption laws have been ramping up, reaching a violent climax just a few days ago. Haredim communities all over the country organized a day of rage to protest the arrest of two ultra-Orthodox youths when they failed to report to the IDF's draft offices. Police made over 120 arrests in violent protests in Bnei Brak, Ashdod, Jerusalem, and Beit Shemesh, where Haredim blocked traffic and shouted, quote, "We'd rather die than be drafted." But the police are now under criticism for the way the arrests went down. When the suspects were brought in for booking, many of them refused to cooperate with authorities, refusing to even give their name for booking. Police then assigned the suspects a number, which was written in marker on their skin to ID them for the necessary paperwork and trial. The imagery clearly struck a chilling nerve, a painful reminder of the numbers Nazis tattooed on Jews to identify them during the Holocaust. The police stand by their claim that the suspects broke the law by refusing to ID themselves, requiring alternate means for police procedure to move ahead.
Israel is being accused of selling advanced weapons to Myanmar, a country in Southeast Asia that's been condemned by the United Nations for slaughtering its Muslim minority. Now, Israel has neither confirmed nor denied the authorization of such sales and claims that there's no relationship between Israel's army and Myanmar.
Horrific reports have emerged from Myanmar over the years, chilling proof of one of the longest-running civil wars in history. Myanmar has been condemned by the UN for textbook ethnic cleansing, massacring tens of thousands of Rohingyans, which are the country's small Muslim minority. That's why most of the world's leaders have held a strict embargo against the sale of arms to Myanmar for years. But accusations are now flying that Israel has been selling weapons to Myanmar behind the world's back, in a deal estimated to be tens of millions of dollars. New pictures have allegedly surfaced of Myanmar Navy boats outfitted with advanced Israeli-made tech, and repeated visits from Myanmar's top military brass to Israel over the years have all raised suspicions. Israel's High Court made a ruling just last September on whether or not Israeli weapons firms could sell to Myanmar, but the ruling was placed under a gag order and never released to the public. The Defense Ministry doesn't typically publicly address security export issues, but sources close to the military firmly deny any connection between the IDF and the Army of Myanmar.
Well, an Israeli model is getting a lot of practice lately for one pose, and it's not on the runway. Rather, it's for her mugshot. 19-year-old Elia Kadosh was arrested earlier this month for coordinating attacks on security guards in Israel's Ichilov hospital. And now she's just been arrested again for breaking her parole and assaulting another officer at another hospital. The Ichilov hospital attacks were a major headline earlier this month when Kadosh, a famous teenage model, was caught on film beating up guards at Ichilov hospital with some friends. The whole entourage was charged with conspiracy to commit a crime and group assault, and Kadosh was placed under house arrest. Well, that prison clearly did little to hold her, not long after she allegedly broke house arrest by taking a taxi to a Holon hospital, but then refused to pay her cab fare, slapped the driver in the face, and threatened that she'd sit Shiva for him. A few days later, she went to another hospital in Bat Yam where she reportedly assaulted an officer, tried to bite him, and then poured Coca-Cola on him as he handcuffed her. Kadosh has been slapped with a whole batch of new charges now, but with her face and all the papers again, you gotta wonder if she's actually enjoying this particular limelight. Now, that was a very strange story. In other news, Israel's Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial Center is about to honor two new righteous Gentiles, non-Jews, who saved Jewish lives from the Nazis during World War II. Well, joining me with more on the two honorees is ILTV's Aaron Poor. So, Aaron, don't keep us in suspense. We got to hear this.
I will keep you in suspense. No, these two new inductees into the Righteous Among the Nations list are very special. Not that all the other names are not special, but this includes, the first Arab man to ever help Jews during the Holocaust to ever be included among the Righteous Among the Nations.
This is amazing. And the second? The
second is actually a Chilean diplomat who saved over 1,200. That's 1,200 people from certain death. So it's a really amazing story. But we'll start off with the first person, as I mentioned, who is a doctor, actually, Dr. Mohammed Helmi, and we'll see that right now in my report.
Dr. Mohammed Helmi is an Egyptian doctor who later settled in Berlin, where he himself faced persecution and arrest by the Nazis for not being Aryan. But in spite of this, Helmi helped hide a Jewish family friend, along with her mother, her stepfather, and her grandmother in his cabin throughout the war. The operation involved years of dangerous secrecy, Once, Helmy even had to introduce his Jewish friend as his cousin until the family finally emigrated to the United States after the war. Helmy is the first Arab to ever be recognized as one of the righteous among the nations, and joining him with this honor is Samuel de Campo, a Chilean diplomat who used his position to grant over 1,200 Jews Chilean passports, helping them escape the ghettos and gas chambers. Del Campo is actually only the second Chilean recognized as one of the righteous. Both he and Helmy now join over 26,000 other names from 44 countries, all righteous Gentiles who courageously saved Jews from the Nazis.
It's incredible. All right, it looks like an Israeli startup has found a way to save the world from cow farts. And no, I'm not joking. The involuntary flatulence produced by cows contains dangerous methane. Methane emissions are considered one of the main causes of global warming, which is why we all need to start consuming less meat. And the Israeli company Equina has a tasty solution.
We're talking peas on steroids. Well, not exactly, but Equina has developed a range of super legumes, including chickpeas, lentils, cowpeas, mung beans, and yellow peas. These superfoods contain around 50% more protein than commercial varieties. Equina is hoping they can serve as a healthy protein replacement for beef. So how did the Israeli startup engineer such protein-packed food? By locating the genes in different plants that produce protein and then hybridizing them. Apparently there aren't any other companies on the market doing what Equina is doing, which is a real shame because today's market shows a real demand for vegetable protein. Today's soybeans are really the main replacement for meat, think tofu, but if scientists really want the world to move on from meat, we need more options. I know it may seem impossible to give up on beef, but Equina may now have the answer, and a tasty, world-saving one at that.
All right, when people talk about the gap between natural and artificial intelligence, you'll usually hear them say that AI sure is great, but the human mind can still see and do so much more. Well, as scary as it sounds, those days are numbered, and that's thanks to the help of Israeli companies like Cortico. Here to fill us in with details is Cortico's CEO and founder, Igal Reichelgaus. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so tell us what Cortico does.
Yes, so Cortico is an artificial intelligence technology company that is enabling autonomous platforms like autonomous vehicles, cameras, and autonomous drones.
Wow. Okay, very interesting. So what makes it different from other AIs or attempts to create AI?
Unlike traditional AI technologies, Cortico technology was inspired by the brain, by the cortex. That's where the name comes from. Mm-hmm. And during our original research, we tried to understand the gaps between biological learning and biological neural architectures and the traditional and conventional machine learning technologies that we have today.
Interesting. So can you kind of tell us that in an example, you know, with one of the products that you guys have right now?
Sure. So the technology currently is enabling different functions like perception, recognition, understanding the surroundings while driving of autonomous cars. It also enables deep analytics using cameras in crowded scenarios when you have a lot of people, different objects, and also drones when you have aerial images with a lot of different details. The technology can recognize objects in real time with near-perfect accuracy.
So this is essentially safety mechanism in many senses. I mean, every single artificial intelligence product that you've created here allows you to stay safer if you're flying and you're a drone or you're on the roads. Interesting. Okay, so right now is this technology available? Are you selling it? Tell us about how it works.
So the technology was developed over the last 10 years. It's a very deep technology. It took a lot of time. We have today a team of over 100 employees in different areas, from brain research to deep learning to machine learning, computer science. And currently we're working hard with different partners to productize and commercialize the technology along various platforms.
Interesting. And where is Cortico being used right now?
Cortico is behind the different autonomous platforms. So if you hear different progress, autonomous vehicles, cameras for safety.
Very interesting. Okay, this is really, really cool. All right, so in your opinion, what is the coolest aspect of the technology that you guys have created?
So the coolest aspect of the technology is its ability to learn on its own, self-learning. Unlike traditional machine learning, where you have to train the system and show it a lot of annotated examples, this is a glass, this is a car, this is a cat, and the technology tries to memorize these things. Our technology can learn on its own just by clustering huge amount of random data.
That's almost scary. I mean, you work in this, so you know more about this world than I do, obviously. But I mean, How likely would you say that robots are going, how likely is it that robots are going to start replacing everything in life? I mean, hearing this is just mind-boggling to me.
I think the first step is autonomy. So we are experiencing now a shift towards autonomy of machines, whether it's a car or a drone or robots. And Cortico's mission
but what is next? What comes after that? I mean, are you already looking into other realms? Your company has the technology to do this, right?
Yeah, basically we see ourselves as a brain behind all these autonomous platforms. So we're not necessarily focusing on a specific vertical or product, but being more horizontal as the brain behind all these developments.
All right. Well, Yigal, I'm going to want to keep up with what you guys are doing because it's very, very cool. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, now get this, it's actually pretty common in Israel to randomly come across ancient artifacts. I mean, with the history behind this country, it's no surprise that a simple garden dig may come up with a historical treasure. But imagine if you ended up finding an archaeological labyrinth in your garden. Well, that's exactly what happened to a family in the Galilean village of Eilabun, only it's gotten local residents in some very, very big trouble.
That's a look into the opening of an elaborate system of underground caves that date back to the Roman period, a whopping 2,000 years ago. Back in the Roman days, these caves seem to have served for storage or stabling horses for centuries. Well, it turns out the family that found the caves wasn't the first to. A series of thieves somehow found their way in, looting the historical site of almost every artifact in view. Luckily, there were a couple of pottery shards left behind, allowing archaeologists to properly date the caves. The looters clearly weren't archaeology experts because when they found the chamber, they started to deepen it and break the rock itself, thinking they would find other interesting artifacts. One thing that they did leave behind, however, was a basalt rock with a groove down the middle. Archaeologists believe that it may have been part of a flour grinding apparatus. Police have arrested 2 of the thieves, but the criminals haven't revealed if they made other findings. The Galilean town of Eilabun used to be an ancient Jewish village and is home to a historical synagogue that has previously been excavated.
Now, for the first time ever, the Israeli Knesset will serve as host to a one-of-a-kind photography exhibition, giving viewers a unique look into the history of the Jewish people of Venice. Well, here to tell us more is the artist behind the works herself, Sarah L. Singer. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. So what is the focus of your exhibition?
Well, the focus of my exhibition come to be, for many years I had been going to Venice and taking photos, and nothing really I was without, just because I love so much this place and the ghetto and feel very emotional.
It's such a beautiful country, you can see.
Yes, and the thing is, 2 years ago was the 500 years commemoration of establishment of a Jewish ghetto. And I was asked in Italy to put together an exhibition. So among 1,000 photos, I had to choose 20. And that was the hard part.
I can only imagine.
And I really went through my, my file, and I chose those 20. And it had been, and it's still in a hotel in Italy, and it had been exhibited in Yerushalayim, and now it's going to be at the Knesset. And for me, I'm so proud, and I'm such an honor. And I'm so happy. Why?
Well, I mean, I think this is very exciting because I don't think people really know that much about the Jewish community in Venice. I've been in Italy.
I didn't even know.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the Jewish community in Venice and what you photograph more specifically.
Okay, the beauty of this community and this ghetto is for 300 years, actually it was a refuge. It's not like the ghetto of Varsovie, it's tragic. It was actually a refuge, even though we were confined. Wow. The Jews from Spain, from Germany, they all came and lived together. If you go now to the ghetto, you'll see that there is few different synagogues, Ashkenaz, Sephardi. So they all live in Ardut. They all respected each other. And I thought, as much as I'm not an historian, but I learned about it, that was the things that I think should be remember.
And for 300,
exactly, for 300 years, we all lived together, respecting each other. And we were so influential, actually, that we did influence the Republic of Venice. Yeah. And I thought that was a beautiful message to bring to the Knesset and to Yerushalayim, that to remember them, to remember this community that had been so much together.
Well, here's my final question for you, because we could go on about this all day, and this is really, really interesting. Are you going to be focusing on other cities next? What comes next after Venice?
Sure. Jerusalem, of course.
Ah, Jerusalem of gold.
But it's not easy because you know it took me 10 years to put together these shots on Venezia,
so
and I made Aliyah 5 years ago.
Oh, you're really gonna have to start now. Huh?
Yes, exactly. But the thing is also I have to mention that I could also make this project real because the foundation Targun Shishi from America helped me, and this is nice because they also are very in tune with the message of this ghetto, and maybe it could be in America soon. So,
all right, well, I would love to check it out myself. For those of us who are interested in checking out the exhibit, it's called Venezia, the Ghetto 500 Years.
Yes.
Right? And it opens on the 31st of October 2017 at 12:30 noon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, now listen closely because you're going to want to download this treasure. A new app has just been released here in Israel, and you'll never believe who it reminds you to call, your one and only grandma. ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh is here to give us some more details. Emmanuel?
Hi, Natasha. So how often do you really call your grandma? Let's be honest, not as much as you probably should. Well, a new video has gone viral talking about a new app that's getting guilty grandchildren to call their savta. Would it kill you to call is the name of the app, and really, people, it wouldn't. But of course, we get busy and things get in the way and we forget. In the video, Savta Yudit, the founder of the Genius app, goes on to explain just why she started this app.
Hello, everyone. My name is Judith Cohen. I'm the creator of this new app, Would It Kill You to Call? You know, young people these days, they're always on their phone, walking, emailing, texting, snapping. What is snapping? I don't even know what snapping is. But do they ever remember to call their bubby? No. After all that we've done, what return do we get? Bupkis. That's why every bubby needs my new app. Would it kill you to call?
It's amazing.
Yes.
That's hilarious. All right, well, we didn't have time to watch the whole video, sadly. I wish we could. So why don't you just tell us how Bubby says the app works?
It's funny because the second I watched this video, I actually called my grandma, whose name is Judith, and tried explaining to her how it works. So basically, Would It Kill You to Kill automatically sends a text message to those grandchildren who failed to make their weekly call, basically guilting them into reaching out. The video goes on about all different text messages that the grandchildren receive if they haven't reached out to Savta for 7 days straight. But there's a catch.
There's always a catch. All right, so what is it?
The app isn't real. The whole video talks about this amazing idea to get people to call their grandmothers, which, by the way, if someone hasn't already developed, I might do that myself. And at the end shares that it isn't a real app, but an advertisement urging viewers to donate money to American Friends of the Hebrew. While this organization is supporting Jerusalem's Hebrew University and its tech department, it also definitely made people call their grandmas. So, hey, it did its job.
Yeah, I mean, well, not only is that an insane marketing technique, it actually made me want to call my grandma, and I know that that's what I'm going to be doing after this show. So thank you for joining us, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. This week we're focusing a lot on family, and there's no one more influential than the matriarchal queen, Grandma. So today's word is Savta, which means grandma in Hebrew. Now, I don't know what I would do without my Savtot or grandmothers, Sonia and Barbara. I mean, seriously, you've got to try my Savta Sonia's cooking. Fresh empanadas, homemade gnocchi pasta. It doesn't get much better than that. And my Savta Barbara, well, she can sew me up an outfit that competes with the greatest fashion houses on the planet. Gucci has nothing on Savta. Now, on a more serious note though, my Savtot are two of my biggest inspirations on the planet. They have a wealth of knowledge that I can only hope to absorb enough of. So remember, don't take your own Savta for granted. She is a window into your history, and if your Savta sadly isn't around anymore, check out the organization Adopt a Savta online, where you can literally connect with a Savta in need. I'm pretty sure you'll find out you need her more than she needs you. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight will be clear to partly cloudy with a low of 64 or 18 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow is expected to remain clear to partly cloudy with no changes in temperatures, with a high of 80 or 27 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.5 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchak, and thanks for watching.